Hi there, thanks for joining me. I'm Catherine from Canada, and I'm going to share a little bit of my day and what's on my desk. And what's on my desk is that William Morris cover that I've been working on. I got a bit more done yesterday, so I'll show you what I did. I've made the new spine, and now I'm beginning to cover it with that fabric. Do you remember that crazy fabric that I went and painted while it was on wax paper and learned a lesson? Use parchment paper or plastic from now on. And thank goodness, as you can see here, I was able to, I just ironed it over some paper towel and on a high heat, and it's just like when you're working with batik, and I was able to peel the rest of that off, and so I've got some of it glued down on the curve of the spine, the main part of the spine. It has been Mod Podged down, but I haven't done this part yet. I find that when you're covering a spine, working in stages makes your job easier. And for the hinges, it's easier to put the Mod Podge on the fabric. It makes the fabric pliable again. So, and the nice thing is that I can put the Mod Podge on this side of the fabric as well. It won't hurt it at all. Now, I want to try and avoid putting any Mod Podge on the cover. I like how it already looks. If I get a little bit along the edge here, I have a little bit of leeway because the lace is a little bit wider, which I like, and it's going to go over the edge. So that's going to do a little bit of camouflaging if I, or maybe I should say when I bloop a little bit of the Mod Podge over the edge by accident. And overnight, while this part was drying, because I used Mod Podge to hold the fabric onto the spine, Mod Podge is water-based, and that could make my spine forget that I want it to be slightly curved. So I used my piece of doweling underneath it, and I just simply, gave it a good push, held it in place for the time being, and used my freezer bag that I have full of dried rice as a weight to just sort of hold it onto that curved doweling to remember that I want it to stay curved. So, because it's not even as if I could use the text block. It's such an easy, wonderful thing when you can remove a text block from an old book and still make use of it as your form while you're restoring or strengthening or whatever it is you're doing to the spine on that book. But this text block is just in pieces. It's shredded and it's unusually bound. I'm not sure I'm going to get very many folios out of it very easily the way it has been bound. It's almost like an inside Coptic stitch. I'm still trying to figure it out because of all the layers of glue that was used on the spine afterwards. It's hard to see how they have sewn these signatures together. It's a mystery to me right now. I'm not going to let that get me down or stop me. Now you're going to notice here, let me bring it down a little bit. Here, if you can see, do I have a piece of paper I can use? Here you can see I have taped down onto the paper, following the grid line, my Tim Holtz zero-centered ruler. It's a really handy ruler. It's almost time for me to get a new one. This one is just so grungy, and I've cleaned it so many times. I made the mistake one time of one side is metal and one side is just the nice sharp plastic. And I made the mistake of using this side with my craft blade, and I pretty well made myself a terrage ruler because the craft blade just started taking out chunks along the edge. So now I know I can use this for measuring. I still use it for I think I put a piece of that plastic into my thumb. I still like it because I really like the thickness and I like this metal. And why I taped this down was in order to ensure that my front cover and my back cover were equal, that they weren't kind of askew or a little bit wonky, so that when the time comes and my book is closed, it's not going to be this big. Once this is wet and I glue it down, I will be using my hands to encourage that nice little crease that we like, the little gutter. We will be creating the gutter. That will bring it in a little bit. But you can see, it's going to be a nice size book. And I have come up with some new ideas for Louie and Oscar on how they're going to look nice. So, Kirby, come out from under there, sweetheart. She's got a new toy today, and unfortunately, it's kind of small. And it's getting into little places. There it is, honey. Here. There you go. Get your ball. Good girl. So now this is kind of short. You might be thinking, that's very short. If I were simply covering the spine with just fabric, yes, I would have brought it out a bit more. But I don't want this to be the focal point. I want the lace to be. So I clipped my nails this morning, but I didn't file them afterwards, and I should have, because now they're just going to chip into pieces. Anyhow, I'm crossing my fingers that this book, which of course really isn't all that well made, I'm hoping it's soft enough, the cover is soft enough, that once I get this glued down, Mod Podged down, that I'm just going to run a stitch line down here with my sewing machine, if it will fit under my free arm. I'm looking at it now. I might have to freehand sew it. I've done that before, because it'll still give it strength. And we'll see. We'll see. Sometimes it's the by guess and by golly method, right? So let's get to work here. You know what? It doesn't hurt to leave this on. I don't know if I'm going to need it or not. So, matte Mod Podge is my go-to Mod Podge. Now, as I said, when I covered the spine, because I wanted it nice and smooth, I applied the Mod Podge to the cardboard. This time, I'm going to mostly apply the Mod Podge to the fabric, because I want the fabric to become really nice and pliable. And it's okay if some of the Mod Podge gets down in there. This is going to be one of those situations where I'm pushing and pushing and prodding and getting it to remember the new shape I want it to be. So kind of like when we're doing our spines when we completely remake a book, like when I made Ren. Those take time. Or when we put that banded spine on that old encyclopedia volume, you have to sort of push on it and get it to remember what it is you want it to do. So then we're just going to start. And if it's jiggling, I apologize. Now you're going to see here these shiny lines. That's the Mod Podge coming through, and that's okay. Here's where you're going to start seeing that the Mod Podge is starting to soak in. I'm starting to use my fingernails to push it in and against the cover and against that spine. I have to lift this up. I can't see what I'm doing. I'm going to pause for a moment. Okay. Sorry, I had to move it up. I got started on my working again and forgot to turn you back on. I'm going to apply some more Mod Podge, and then again, here is where I hold it down and just get it to remember, hey, I want you to hold. And yep, some of the Mod Podge, as I thought, is squeezing out a bit there. Not a problem. So see how I've created my nice little gutter there that we want. And I did something that I shouldn't do, so I'm going to tell you so that maybe you'll remember and learn from my errors. And I should know better by now, but you know, I turn the camera on and I get to work, and I'm excited to see how this is going to turn out because I'm already liking it. Usually what I do this so seldom that I feel like every time I do it, it's like the first time. And it's not second nature to me yet. And normally I should do the back hinge first. It reminds my brain, oh yeah, this is how I do it. And that way the front hinge, which is your showcase hinge, you want it to look nice. And I just every once in a while nudge it back into place there to get it to do what I want it to do. So that's nice. I'm not worried about this yet. That's going to be a whole other ball game because you can't even see. Can you see what I'm talking about? Oh yeah, because I made it higher. I'm going to be cutting a little notch in there so that it's not too bulky right at an important part where you want a nice floppy hinge. And then it gives you your hinge. Now again, please don't worry about that white. It's going to be camouflaged with this beautiful old lace that maybe it was her mother's, part of her mother's wedding gown, because it looks like their only daughter Jean never married. I couldn't find a marriage for her, and she's buried with her parents under her maiden name, so I suspect she was a spinster. Hopefully Mom and Dad left her comfortable and Hopefully she had work and friends and a community around her and had a wonderful life. Marriage isn't the be-all and end-all. We can have satisfying lives. The trouble was, back in that era, it limited her ability, of course, to run her own business, purchase her own properties, further herself financially without a husband. So I will probably be adding more. This is just sort of getting it started, getting the fabric to remember, getting it kind of moist and pliable. And that's the Mod Podge coming through because it was only painted. And we got the wax out, remember? Depending on how much space you gave yourself will determine whether you use a bone folder, whether you use, sometimes I'll use the upper side of my old kitchen knife when I want something flush against that old. Boy, I just gave myself just enough room there, didn't I, for the sewing? So if you're thinking ahead, like I am, because I'm looking at this book, it's big. And if you're thinking ahead like I am, and you're thinking you're not going to be able to fit that book under the arm of your old mother's Kenmore sewing machine, which is what I work with. And Mom would be glad. I can use my awl and poke holes right through the cover and then hand sew it with some really tough upholstery thread, and that will ensure that stays down. The next part's going to be frustrating because I'm going to want to leave this and make sure I get it well dried before I start playing with turning this under, because the same rules are going to apply. I'm going to have to open it up the other side, apply lots of Mod Podge underneath, get it really sopping wet with Mod Podge so that I can make that turn under and get a really nice edge to the head and the foot of the spine. I toyed with the idea, since I'm just going to stitch here and it won't even be seen afterwards. The end papers inside are going to cover it and the lace on the outside are going to cover it. It's simply so that I know that someday whoever adopts Louie and Oscar and William anyhow, now I forget where I was going. Oh, I toyed with the idea of stitching all around the edge because you can see here, this fabric wants to come up. It was coming up completely on this side. And I'll tell you what I did. So if you're possibly the new owner watching me make your book, if the corner starts lifting, because I love it like this, I don't want to put metal corners on it. I don't want to sew around the edge. At least right now I don't. And so if the rest of this tears, which someday it probably will, I simply lifted it up with some tweezers. I used my 3-in-1 and I used a silicone brush and made it very smooth. You got to work quickly. When 3-in-1 is thin, it will dry very fast. When it's thick, you got tons of time. You got tons of sliding time. But when it's thin, you do not have tons of time. So I'm just pushing the spine against the cover to get it to remember that nice little hinge that we've made there. See how we've got a nice hinge now? And it opens and closes nicely. I would suggest you just do that. And then just keep going with the grunge, because you're going to see some bubbles here. There's some bubbles here. And I have a suspicion that over the years, this is going to want to lift. And I wonder if, for posterity's sake, I should write a note about that and tuck it inside this journal to wherever it goes. If the William Morris cover tries to come off, use an acetone-based. I don't know. All right, I'm very happy with that. So it's a little off center. Again, I did my best, but it had ideas of its own, and that's all right because I have enough room here to sew. And when the lace goes on, it will cover up and no one will know that the fabric was off center. Won't that look nice? So there's no point continuing on right now today because I'm really going to put it aside for the rest of the day. I'm going to put some bricks over this part. I might hold it under my sewing machine in the meantime and see if it fits. It's just a straight line, so we could cross our fingers and hope. And then we'll get together at the next stage. But the next stage, like I said, is simple because I'll just be soaking this and then it's going to fold over like that. And we're going to have a beautiful new spine on an old book that the spine might be one of the worst that I've ever had. And I've worked on older books than this one, so it just shows you the different techniques, the different quality of materials that publishers used, and what you ended up with and how long their product, how well they aged. I'm looking around to see if there's anything else to show you. I didn't do any thrifting yesterday. We went to a soccer game for one of our granddaughters. Had a little soccer game, so that was great to go out and cheer. And otherwise, life's been quiet and lovely. Well, smoky. But such is our world right now. And who knows what the answer is going to be to all these forest fires. We need our trees. They create our atmosphere so that we can breathe oxygen. When we go to sleep at night, they make us oxygen. All their little solar panels, all their little green solar panels have work to do, and we need them. So. Alrighty. Well, thanks for joining me. I hope this was helpful to you. If you have any questions about why I did what I did, if you have any suggestions on an easier way to do this, because trust me, I thought about bookbinder's tape. This is bookbinder's cloth tape. It doesn't come in very many colors, and I didn't like black, and I also didn't like that it wasn't wide enough to do it in one piece, but I didn't want to overlap it or cut it. So the bookbinder's tape, I wanted it to be green. So, and I think we did a very good job matching up the green with their original painting job that they did when they tried to do the first refurbishment of William Morris's book. And when Louie and Oscar move in and take over, I think if that's there, I want Louie and Oscar to probably be about here. And I changed my mind about where I want that journaling board, because I think I'm going to put it there. And I bet a whole bunch of you are going, well, of course, Catherine, we were yelling at our screen. Thank you for yelling at your screens. Oh, that's upside down. So that's just a nice rusty little book plate. That's the good old method of vinegar, peroxide, and salt. So even when you've got gold ones that you don't like, that are just way too gold, and you don't feel like using your alcohol inks, sometimes alcohol inks, you can get a really good faux finish, and other times you need the real deal. And in the case of like these, I wanted real rust on metal. If you can get the real rust, it's really it's so superior. So I think Louie and Oscar, their plate will go there. And then I'm going to give you a little hint of what I'm thinking. I'm thinking I want to put some eyelets and ribbons and find a way to either attach it to the front with just bows, and that way this could be removed so that you can see the back where it says Louie Smart and Oscar Matchett and when they got married. And that's another reason why I think this is a wedding picture, because it says about. And I wonder even if that's Jean's writing, their daughter Jean, because that's nice. There we go. Okay, that's gonna look nice. I'm happy. All right, take care. We'll get together soon, and we'll get a little bit further done on Louie and Oscar. Take care. Bye.